and welcome once again to my channel where I try to provide Oracle related educational content for your personal and professional development. And if you like content like this, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, enable notifications so that you can stay updated of when we release new content. And please don't forget to share with your friends. So our video today came about as an inspiration. I know a lot of DBAs out there are working on projects where they have to upgrade multiple databases within their different environments. So for me personally, in the month of January coming up, I have more than 50 to 100 databases that I will be upgrading. So I started thinking, how can I make this process a little bit easier on me? So in the previous videos, I showed you guys how we could use the database upgrade assistant, DBUA, to upgrade. In our case, we used the 12C release 2 database and upgraded to 19C. But you know, that does a lot of hand-holding, which is good. But in a situation where you have multiple databases, how can you automate this process so that multiple databases can get upgraded at the same time? So that got me to explore a really cool tool from Oracle called the Auto Upgrade tool. And the reference for my my video today is actually an Oracle documentation, doc ID 2485457.1. So if you have access to Oracle, to my Oracle support, this doc ID kind of gives a little bit of a documentation on the upgrade tool. So what the upgrade tool actually does is it allows DBAs to upgrade one or more databases without human intervention. I wouldn't really say without, but with minimal human intervention, right? And all it needs is for you to set up a configuration file. And in this demo, I would show you guys how to do that. So the auto upgrade will actually run the upgrade pre-upgrade tasks, perform automated fix-ups where needed, execute the database upgrade, and perform post-upgrade tasks. So which I think is pretty cool, right? So one of the things that you have to always make sure that you do is to download the most recent auto upgrade tool. And again, that can be found from this document that I referenced a little earlier. So without much ado, let's get to our environment where we can start working with that. So I would, launch one of my Oracle sessions here, log into our server, primserve, and as our user Oracle. So first of all, I want to make sure, let's view my etc tab file so that I see, in this case, I'm going to be demoing how we would upgrade two 12C databases concurrently to 19C. And as pre-setup, I had created two databases. So test1 and test2, all running from the 12C release 2 home. And these are the two databases that I would make sure that we set up in our configuration file. So let's see if the databases are up and running. Let's do a ps-ef, and let's grep for our SMON process. So fair enough, I have my test1 and test2 all running at the same time. So just to confirm further, tst1, I'll set up my environment. All right, so let me make this screen a little bigger for some of you who have eyes like me, might need a little bit more help. So let's set our environment to tst01, and let's run a SQL plus as sysdba, and let's select instance name status. How about we add version from a v $instance. So we currently have tst1, it's open and it's running on 12C release 2. And I would do the same for our tst or env, and then tst2, just to make sure, SQL plus as sysdba. And I would run the same query just to make sure that we have that database also up and running, just for confirmation. So we are planning on upgrading these databases from 12.2 to 19C. All right, so I had already downloaded my auto upgrade jar, the most recent one I mentioned from the Oracle support document. So in terms of setup, what I would do is, let me see where I am. I am home Oracle, and let's see what I have in here. I have only one folder called backup. So I want to prepare what we would call the global auto upgrade lock directory. So I would make a directory in this same location. I would call that directory auto upgrade. You know what? I would do a make dir -p because I would have to add another subdirectory under that one. So I want to do that all at the same time. So 19C upgrade. All right, so I would I'm creating a directory and a subdirectory. That's why I'm using the make dir -p at the same time. All right, so let's ls-l right here. We have our auto upgrade. Let's ls-l of our auto upgrade, and I expect to see the 19C subdirectory in there. So so that is good. So at this point, what I want us to do is, for those of you who have used MobileXterm to copy files from your local system to your server, this should not be new to you. But if you haven't, that is what I would try to do right now. So I would open up this session here, go to my SFTP tab, and fair enough, I'm already in my home Oracle. I would go over to, let's refresh this a little bit. So that brings up my auto upgrade. I would go to my auto upgrade folder. And what I would do while I'm in my auto upgrade folder is click on the green arrow up to upload. So I will upload this right here. And I do have in my desktop a folder OL7, and I have the auto upgrade jar file, which I had downloaded a few days ago. So that certainly would start up. Oh, that went quick. It's a really small file, so we didn't even have time to see how we uploaded from 0% to 100. But I can confirm that here by going into my auto upgrade folder and running a listing. And fair enough, I see this now. What you would want to do is you want to make sure that the auto upgrade jar in our 19C home is the most current. So we would replace that auto upgrade jar because currently there is one in your 19C home, but we would replace that auto upgrade jar that is currently in your 19C home with the most recent, with this one that we just uploaded here. And in order to do that, we would, first of all, let's see here if we can find it, ls-l. Let's list the U01. Let's go to our app, Oracle 19C, 19. All right, let me see what this is going here. So let's ls-l, and then let's follow our U01 path, app, Oracle, product 19C, DB01. It's in our rdbms folder admin subdirectory. So auto upgrade and the tab. So fair enough, we have one sitting in this current Oracle 19C Oracle home. So we would replace this current file with our newly uploaded autoupgrade.jar file. So we would use a copy -r command. We are copying the auto upgrade file and replacing it in this folder. So we are copying it to this auto upgrade location, which is 19C home, rdbms admin. So copy -r, so we are going to replace that. So that has been done. Now, when we replace that, it is important for us, therefore, to double check, just as a check. Let's see if we have, and it tells us here, remember that this initial file was February 8, 2019, and the current one right now, which is our date today, December 30th. So that file has effectively been replaced. Now, in order to make sure that we are working with the most recent version, I would like for us to check, because then there are two things that come into play. You want to make sure you check the version of your auto upgrade jar file, and you want to make sure that you check the version of your Java, because for this to work, we need Java 1.8 and beyond. So if you still have Java 1.7 or below, you might want to update that. And you can look for documentation on the Oracle website on how you need, on what you need to do to upgrade your Java. So let's go ahead and check that, right? So in order for us to check that, then we want to confirm that version is the most recent version. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's use a Java jar. I would minimize this so I get a little bit more real estate for you guys to see. So I would make sure that I use the jar location. So let's go ahead and copy this up to the point where it's at Oracle home. And then I would use a Java in Oracle 19c home. So I'll go to JDK bin folder and run Java minus jar. So let's first of all check our version for Java, sorry, minus version. Let's check our Java version. So if we use this command, we would get Java version is 1.8, which is exactly what we want it to be. Now let's go ahead and check our auto upgrade version. We use the same command, but we would call up the Java jar and run that on our Oracle 19c home auto upgrade. So up to this point, rdbms admin auto upgrade, and then we check with the version. So this is the command we are typing. So Oracle home, Oracle 19c home, rdbms admin auto upgrade.jar file, and we're looking for the version. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this is the most recent version. It has a build date of 2021 November 15th. So that happens to be the most recent version. So we are set to go. We are all set to go. What currently is in the base release of the 19c home is a 2021, I think, July 2nd, if I'm recalling this well. You want to make sure that that will still work, but you always want to make sure that as a good practice, you want to download and use the most current auto upgrade jar file. All right, so while that is done, so we've confirmed Java is 1.8, and we've confirmed that we have the most updated version of our auto upgrade. So at this point, the next thing to do, remember I said there is something called the config file. So we would have to create that config file. When we create that config file, we would rename that config file and then make adjustments or edits into that config file. All right, so let's do that. So in order to create the config file, there is this command here using the create sample file. So I would copy all of this right here, paste it, and create a config file. And before I do that, I just want to make sure that you understand that I am in this location, right? In my home Oracle upgrade, auto upgrade location. When I create that config file, it is going to be part of this folder. So currently I have a folder in here, the 19c upgrade, and I have the auto upgrade.jar file, which I already used. So I would create that config file, sample config file. If I hit enter, it tells me here that it created a sample config file and put in this same location. And we can double check that by running a listing on that folder. And fair enough, I have a sample config file. Now, do I want to use a sample config file? I could, if I wanted to, I could rename it and do it the way I want. But I always like to leave this original file and make a copy of that file. So I would copy the sample.config file, and I would call it 19c upgrade.config. So you .config, sorry, underscore config .cfg. However you rename it, it has to have the extension CFG. for the configuration file. So now that I have copied, let's take a listing at this, and we see that we have our 19c upgrade.config file, and we have a sample config.cfg file. So it is time for us to edit this file and then make the necessary changes that we need. So in order to edit, of course, we would use on Linux, we would use a VI editor, and I would go ahead and edit this file. Now, before I edit this file, I would like to open up a session. That way it makes it a little bit easier for me. I'll open up another Oracle session. Let's make the terminal zoom a little bit bigger. That way I can pull some information that I need into my file that I am editing. So I would basically use my etc or a tab file to get that information that I need. I need a target home, a source home, and a target home. So let's go ahead and edit this file, and then we make the necessary changes. So one of the things that you would need to know is there are two types of parameters, right? There are global parameters and there are database specific parameters. Now, if I make a change to the global parameter, it affects all the databases that I am trying to update. But if I want those parameters to affect just the specific databases, then I have to put them under the database specific parameters. Now, if you look at this configuration file, there is database number 1, database number 2, and you can keep going down that file. So, but for what concerns us right now, we want to use just the two databases. So test1 and test2, that's all we're going to use. So we're going to need 2 entries for database 1 and database 2. So I would edit this, and first of all, I want to edit my global auto upgrade lock directory. Remember, we created this lock directory. First of all, hit the I button on the keyboard to switch to insert mode. I will remove this, and just because I don't want to type in, I'm human, so I can type and make mistakes. I want to make sure that I go here and copy this directory myself. So cd into auto upgrade 19 upgrade, and then I would run a print working directory to get that. This is the directory I want to use as my global auto upgrade log. So all the logs for both of the databases while they're upgrading are going to be found in this location. Now, similarly, for this location, I would take off all of this. Remember, by default, it points you to the config tools log folder. So I would take this out and use this same directory, but then because this is for our test1 DB, I can call it test1. So just making sure that my test1 DB goes in there. So let's delete this. I don't like this. Is just going to create a little bit of a distraction in terms of visual. It's just a guide. If you're comfortable, you delete that. So what's the Oracle SID? This is the service identifier for that database test1. That's what I'm going to be using. And what's the source home for test1? That's why I opened up my Etsy or a tab on this side so that I can copy the exact source home from here. So on the Etsy or a tab file, the source home for test1, which is going to be the same source home for test2, is U01 app product 122001 db home _1. So I paste that right here. And the target home would be our 19C home. So that target home, I would come back over on this side. Again, I can type that, I know it, but I don't like, typing, especially with things like configuration files. If I can copy and paste, I know I am doing the right thing. So the other option is, when do you want this upgrade to start? By default, there is a start now. Now, if you wanted this to start at a future time, you would indicate that there. But I realize in production environments, in my real environments, usually before you start an upgrade, there has to be a lot of communication that goes to the application stack when you get to go ahead for applications to be brought down and connectivity and everything is good before you start the database. So I don't like automating the start time. I like to run this exactly with a now when I'm about to start it. So there are some parameters here that have been commented out. This is UTLRP. And if you're familiar with upgrading databases, this is recompiling packages in the event that any of them is invalid. So we recompile before the upgrade and after the upgrade. So I would change these options and make it stay yes, and then make sure that I uncomment this because effectively I want this to recompile. Same thing with the time zone. I want the time zone to be upgraded as well. So I would go ahead and do a yes for this one. And again, I don't like keeping these comments because they make it a little difficult to read, but that's my personal preference. Now, very important. So I would comment this out. You're upgrading the target version. What target version? Remember, the target is 19 in our case, right? So you can upgrade to a target version of 12 to 18, 19, 21. And in our case, we are targeting for a 19 upgrade. So that's what we are going to keep. And these are the only parameters that you would see me change. Now, if you have, full database, container database upgrades, this also works for if you have pluggable, within the context of 12C, you have pluggable databases. This also works as well. But in our case, we have two databases, TST1, TST2. These are all non-container databases. So these are all full databases. So just to make this a little, and this is a comment, it's just to give you direction, right? So I would go ahead and change this so that I replace this with a full container and non-container database. Same thing, I would use the same logic over here. The upgrade lock there, it would not change, except that I would point this second upgrade database to TST2. So TST2, we want to make sure that that stays. And again, I have to uncomment it. I have to take out the comments on all of them. I'll just do that right now so that I don't have to come and repeat this. Or better still, what I would do is, let me get out of insert mode. I would have to just copy all of this, paste it, and then make some changes that I need to make. So if I am out of insert mode with the escape key, I would just have to delete this. I use the DD key to delete each line because there are options here that are not there and I don't want to get anyone confused. So database 2, I would go back to insert mode and I would paste. But what I have to make sure that I do is I change this to 2. I delete this and I put 2. Same thing 2, same thing 2. This is 2, 2, 2, and 2. And then, of course, make some changes to the SID, the service identifier, and this would be 2. And same thing with the log there, it will be 2. Now, if I take a look at this and everything kind of looks good to me, which I think it is, I would save this, escape, colon, shift colon, WQ. So let's take a look at, let's cut the contents of that file to see what changes we made and make sure that upgrade config file. So let's take a look at that and see. So right now, this is what we have. So we have a global upgrade. Log directory is a 19C upgrade log. This location is where we would, be seeing as things move on within the upgrade, the status logs and things like that. DB1 is TST1. So source is okay, target is okay. Now our node is this, and our version is 19. Same thing for TST2. So now that we have and everything is looking good on the config files, let's go ahead and maybe we source some environmental variables and kind of run our upgrade. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to run in analyze mode to analyze these databases and see if there are any changes that we need to make in order to before we proceed. So I would probably start my analysis. I would export my Oracle home because I'm doing the objective is I'm trying to upgrade to 19C. So I would source some variables here. I will export the Oracle home to 19C home. And I could easily do that either if I have a 19C database, which I currently have, I can just .env and source that database environment. But I don't know if you guys do. So we'll go with this. So let's take a look at that. I highlighted, but I did not copy. So I would right click and copy this. I would come back here and I would export my Oracle home to my 19C home. And I want to export my path variable and add the JDK bin path because I'm particularly interested in Java, and Java sits in that JDK bin path. So I would export that. So just to confirm, as always, I would do an echo the value of Oracle home to make sure that it's 19. And I would echo the path variable as well, just to make sure that within this path variable, I have my JDK bin here. And to confirm, I would say which Java am I running? So it's going to run, if I use Java, it's going to run Java from the 19C home, which is exactly what I want. All right. So now that I have sourced my environmental variables and I know which Java I am going to use, I would use the Java -jar. And if you don't want to use the Java -jar, you can always pass the whole path to the 19C home Java location. You can pass all of this up to the bin /Java jar. But because I have already sourced my environmental variables and I know Java is going to run from that, I could just call up Java in this way. So I'm going to do java.jar right here. And then the autoupgrade.jar file, I would, you can use exactly the way it is because I have this autoupgrade.jar file already in this location. But I would, just to show you guys, not to make it any confusing for you, I would go ahead and pick that auto upgrade from what we replaced. So that would be what I would use. Let's put it here. That way it makes it a lot easier if you're following to understand. So let's copy this whole command and then we're going to run in analyze mode. So let's copy this and then go back to our mobile extem and let's take this one out. And then I would run Java jar, all of this auto upgrade.jar. And what is the config file? It's 19c upgrade.conf.cfg, and I'm running in analyze mode. Analyze mode is kind of a pre-check, right? So it runs an auto upgrade the utility, it calls it up. And while you are in the auto upgrade utility prompt, you can type help, and it's going to give you a list of commands that you can use. Currently, I just want to type an lsj command to see what jobs are currently running. So the listing of the jobs, I have 2 jobs running right now, 100 and 101. So it's doing some pre-checks right now. So remaining 89 out of 101 for the TS2 database, and for TS1 database, it's actually running, it's loading the database information. Now, this is a really, really cool and flexible tool because it has such an easy interface to use, right? So I can also see maybe the status of any of the jobs that are running and the status job, and say maybe I wanted to see the status of job 100. And all it does is it gives me what has been going on. So it tells me what the start time of that job is. It tells me what stage it is. And then it tells me how many minutes it's spending and what's currently in progress right now. And remember, we defined our global logs directory as this. And for each of the databases, we had TST2 and of course TST1. And then there are some subdirectories that are going to get created depending on what the auto upgrade is doing. So that's a pretty cool interface to use. I will do an LSJ once more just to see exactly where we are. This is remaining 1 of 101. So this runs pretty quickly. It should tell us here in a little bit when it's done. Now I can, of course, head over to this location here, and I can see what, is in any of them. So if I CD to this location here, and I look inside, I would CD again into that test one. It's going to give me a certain job number, which is 101. I can CD into 101 and see what's in there. And then I can see the pre-check. So I can see the autoupgrade.log. I can tail -f that log to see what's going on. So I can actually get as granular as I need in order to see what is going on if I don't want to use it. So actually, our job completed, right? So job 101 completed. Job 100 also completed. So it says we can check the summary reports at this, right? So it gives you the summary reports in two interesting formats, right? It gives you in a log format and it gives you in an HTML format. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? So I would go over to this status location right here. Control C to break out of that. And I would see what's in here. Let's see this. Sorry, I didn't CD. And then let's see what's in here. So these are the different files. Now, using my mobile XTEM, let's take a look at these files. I'm going to download those files. I copied the location. I would paste it up here, hit enter, and then I would see the files. Now, let's take a look at this status location. So let's download this. The blue arrow would be the download. I can put it in my downloads folder, or I can put it in that same folder that I had this one. So there is already an existing one in there when I was running the test. But I would go ahead and choose my desktop. Let's go up here. Let's go to my desktop up here in the OL7. That's where I'm going to put that. So after it finishes, you would see this appear over here. And it's going to be a pretty cool thing to look at because it's going to tell you on which job 100, which was the database name was TS2. We're trying to upgrade from 12.2 to the base version 19.3. And it looks at the upgrade stage list and tells you pre-check passed and no manual intervention is needed. Same thing with job 101. Pre-check passed with no manual intervention needed. Now, in my experience, if you're upgrading a database, no matter what database you're trying to upgrade, there are always some things that you have to consider, right? What it does for you is it basically would help you do, the recompilation and things like that before. What it would do also for you is, remember we said in the beginning, there are going to be some pre-op tasks. It's going to run them. It's going to perform auto fix-ups where needed, execute the database upgrade, and perform post-upgrade tasks. So at this point, we really don't need to, but in the interest of this course, let's run it the way it is. And if we happen to meet some errors, we will figure out how to solve those together. So we were able to run our pre-check. So now we would just go ahead and we have to run this now in deploy mode. The analyze mode does the pre-checks for you, and the deploy mode actually starts the upgrade process. So let's go ahead and do that then. So in order to start the upgrade, the same command that we ran for analyze, we are going to run that same command, but under mode, we go with deploy. So deploy is actually kicking off the upgrade of these two databases at this time. So let's go ahead and do that. So the deployment has started, upgrade launched. We are starting at 11:41 a.m. And then let's see how long this would take. So again, you would get your auto upgrade prompt. I can list the jobs LSJ, and it tells us exactly what is going on. So TST2 pre-checks have started. It's loading database information. TST1 still at the setup stage. And you can run this as often as you like. Okay. So LSJ again tells us now we've already moved from loading database information to we're doing, the pre-checks right now. So if I wanted to go into a little bit more detail, job 102, I would go with status of job 102. And let's see what that gives, right? So status of job 102, pre-checks, set up guarantee restore point. Now, something I must mention about the guarantee restore point. If you're trying to use the auto upgrade tool on a database that is running in no archive lock mode, you're going to get an error because you cannot set up a guarantee restore point on a database that is not running in no archive lock mode, right? So this would be something that you would have to take note and fix. Your database has to be running in archive lock mode in order for it to proceed. And the good thing about this tool is if it fails, you can go fix the error that made it fail and then come back and resume your job. So if I type help, there is a resume command right here. I think if I can find it, resume, right? Resume with the job number, and then it restarts a previous job that was running. Okay, so the help is gonna, give you an idea of some of the commands that you can do. Now let's type LSG to see where our process is. And again, we can go back to the upgrade logs and then see what's going on. So let's look at the status of let's say which of the jobs. Let's go job TST 1, for example, right? Which is job 103. Let's look at the status. If we go all the way up to the beginning, it tells us where our job logs are. So let's go ahead to this location. And I'll go to another terminal. Let's cd into, let me clear my screen here. And then let's cd into a new location of where the logs are, and then we see what's going on in there. Usually, I like tailing one of two logs. I either like tailing the auto upgrade log itself or the user log. Because if you run into an error in this using the auto upgrade tool, it is going to point you to the user log. So let's tail -f. Let's tail the user log to see what's going on. So, okay, good. So it has done some pre-checks, fix-up available, yes. It's going to automatically run the fix-ups. Unless it is something that doesn't have a fix-up, then it's going to prompt you to do that. Let's also open up another terminal so that we can tell what the jobs for or the TS2 database. So LSJ, let's see where we are. The TS2 database is 101. So we find the status of job 102. All right. So jobs 102, this is the logs for job 102. And we can see I'll make this bigger so that it looks like the other terminals. I would cd into that location. And ls-l, and then I would also tail that user log. So tail -f on that user log. So we are almost about the same place where this is. So it's adding fix up, it's purging the recycle bin at this point. So this is what we are going to be doing for the rest of the upgrade. It is pretty much straightforward, I would imagine. if you get familiar with doing it. Now, my recommendation for you is if you're trying this out, try it out with one database first. And when you get familiar with it, then you can expand it to as many databases. Something I'm trying to find out, and I haven't, read, to deep enough to know is how many databases can we concurrently? Is there a maximum? And if I find that out, I'll put that in the comments on the video, so that if you're working on this and you're curious about that kind of information, you can look in the comments and you'll see that. So let's see LSJ one more time. And that would be like this. So what I would do here at this point is, because this is all we are going to be doing, looking at the listing of the jobs and the status of the jobs, and following, of course, our logs until the end of the upgrade. I would have to pause the video in the interest of time, but I would, in the event that anything comes up or any error comes up, I would resume the video and we would walk through those errors. But before I do that, let's take one last look at the status of the jobs that we are running. So 102, let's take a look at that. So at this point, it is actually in the fix ups, it's actually executing the prefix ups right now. Prefix objects finished, dictionary stats have been taken. So let's take a look at job 103. And this kind of looks like same thing. This is almost kind of about where we are. So prefix subs 3 minutes in progress. This was prefix subs 4 minutes in progress. So it's actually executing the prefix subs at this point. So at this point, I probably maybe would start off by muting myself and kind of just navigate the screens so that we see what's going on. Four still 505. So yeah. So, all right, so it looks like we have an error somewhere. And our error tells us something unexpected. The field check has an error, but the fix-up is unavailable. So manually fix the problem and rerun auto upgrade. And this is for our TST2 database. So it tells us where to find that. So on our auto upgrade user log, remember I told you that. So let's take a look. Is this TS2? A field check has that, and let's see here. So this is our TS2 database. What is the problem? Error dispatcher failed, management routine. Okay, so there is a minimum recovery area size. All right, so we have a problem with the FRA, and I set both recovery areas in the same way, but TST1 is not reporting a problem. Let's take a look at this. I would see here, I'll open up a session, a terminal. Let's look at the terminal here. I'll break out of this. dot or env, and I go tst2 SQL plus as sysdba, and then I would show a parameter recovery. Let's take a look at that. It's set at 8. And this one, okay, just to be on the safe side, let me go ahead and set this either to 10 or 15. So I would alter system, set the recovery file destination size. I don't have any issues with space, so I would give it 15 gig. Scope equals both. And I would alter that system and I would exit out of this. Now I have fixed the problem, but it doesn't mean that this is still running. So I would have to resume. If I hit enter and LSJ, it tells me here that LS has been stopped, right? So I would have to use that resume. If you remember help, I would have to use that resume button right here, resume minus job 102, because 102 was stopped. So before we do that resumption, let's do an ls minus L here to see, first of all, let's continue to till minus F, the user log. So I would resume that, and then we see if that job kicks off. So resuming the job LSJ, it is continuing, and then let's take a look at that. So hopefully that would fix our problem. All it takes is you just kind of read through where the errors are and see if you can identify something that you can fix. All right, so it does this. So it looks like our job resumed successfully. And we can also check the status of that job. So 102. Where are we? We are doing a prefix subs again. All right, LSJ. Okay. So we'll just keep an eye on this and see how it works. So just so it doesn't feel like we're watching the grass grow, I want to open this concurrently. So I would use Potty in order to do that. So I would open up some Potty sessions. The first session. So of course you want to make sure that you know what the IP address of your server is. And in order for me to do that, I can open up another session. Maybe I can just duplicate another session here. And it tells me straight up here that is my IP address, but of course you can run a host name minus I to get that IP address. So on Potty, I can do an Oracle connect as Oracle at that Potty address, that IP address. And Oracle would be the password. And it's connecting. Now what I would do is I would change the settings, and then I would go under appearance. Where is it? Window appearance, and then I'll change the fonts. I would probably make it, let's do 14 and see. If it doesn't look big enough for me, I would make it 16. I think that should work, right? And then what I'll do is I probably would duplicate this session, Oracle, and I would have both sessions running. I would run the sessions right here. I put this one on this side, and then I put another Potty session on this side. So One of them would be certainly our TST1 database. The first one would be our TST1 database, and the second one would be our TST2 database. So let's get the location for our TST1 database. So let's do status minus job that 103, and that job logs are going to be here. So let's go ahead and cd to that location, cd to that location, ls minus ltr, and then we can tail minus f upgrade user log. And for our second party session, we have job 102 representing a test 2. Let's look at the status of that job, and then we can see where the logs are. 102, and then of course our job logs are located right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So cd into that location, ls minus ltr, and then we tail minus f the user log as well. All right, so if we look at this log, so I've split my screen, and this is for job 102. Now it tells us now what stage of upgrades we are. So we are 6% upgraded, 10% upgraded. So we would just look at these logs and kind of follow track. I'll try to be quiet here, but I would toggle somewhere between these 3 screens right here. So let's take a look at that. Let's see how that works. So we are 5%, 10% upgraded. So let's go ahead and watch this for a little bit. I'm just kind of, usually I would kind of stop the video, pause it, which is initially what I thought. But in my experience, once this process starts upgrading, it upgrades, all the way to the end. Usually the errors are identified in the pre-stages, the setup stage, the pre-checks, the fix-ups, and things like that. But once the upgrade typically starts, this is for our test 1, and this is for our test 2. And the exciting thing, again, like I said, is we're upgrading these 2 databases concurrently. In the interest of managing our time, this is a really, really, really good method on how to upgrade multiple databases at the same time. But, the advantage of DBUA is that it does a little hand holding. You choose what options, it moves you to the next screen that is in the graphical mode. I haven't heard too many people request, but if, consumers of these videos request, I can make a video on how to use DBUA in silent mode. And that would be for situations where sometimes display forwarding has been disabled on those servers and you cannot have that graphical interface. And then, of course, we would be able to use DBUA, but we would have to do it on the command line, which is why they call it silent mode. All right, so I would be quiet for now while we watch our upgrade. And you could forward this video to where the upgrade stops, but I would just let it go so that I don't want us to miss if there is any error that comes up. Okay, so if you have been following the logs for our TST1 database, it has been successfully upgraded. So let's take a look here. This TST2 is at 91%. So let's go ahead and take a look. LSJ. So at this point, it's loading up the database information. We can dig down a little bit more and check the status of that job to get some more specifics. So currently, in terms of specifics, upgrade lasted 34 minutes. So we're doing post checks at this time. Okay, here are the post checks. So it has started compiling invalid objects. So remember I said for our database, the upgrade, auto upgrade utility, it does all of that stuff for you. So it executes the database upgrades and it performs the post update tasks, which is what we are doing right now. But no, that's not what I want to type. I want to continue the status. All right, post checks is executing post fix ups right now as part of the recompiling invalid objects. So it shouldn't be too long before we are able to get done with this particular database. So the TST1. TST2 is also reporting success. So if we look at the logs for TST2 or the status of TST2, which is job 102, we're currently running post checks like we did previously for TST1. All right, so recompilation for test one database successful. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at the status of that job, TST1. So status minus job dash job would be TST1. Let's see where we are right now. Still doing post fix ups. So this is done. Invalids are done. So so we're getting closer to the end of the upgrade for TST1. Which is job 103. All right, so it's doing timestamp right now. And that should tell us in the log. And let's take a look at what TST is doing, still compiling. So like I mentioned earlier, usually the errors typically pop up in the pre-stage, but once the upgrade actually starts, you hardly get much errors in my experience. So we just have to wait it out until it completes. Let's do our LSJ one more time. Remaining 104 for TST1. For TST2, it's remaining 4 out of 4 tasks. And again, if you want, you could look at the status of that job to see where we are. We're still doing time zone. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it gives you the timeline. And when the upgrade finishes, of course, there's going to be a summary of how much time it took per each task. But generally speaking, the database upgrade portion is what takes a considerable amount of time. And, you know, of course, upgrading a database is all about upgrading the components. And we are going to check those components after the upgrade is finished to see and make sure that everything completed. All right, so fix-ups, the recompilation post for TST2 completed. Let's take a look at our LSJ and all right, so we're almost done on TST1. Let's look at the status of that one to see what step we are right now. Still post fix ups. I'll minimize this a little bit. Okay. Creating final SP file for TST1. And this is looking good so far, guys. This is looking good. All right, so I think this one is done. TST1 is done. So we have to remember to drop the guaranteed restore point. And the reason for that is, of course, if you have a guaranteed restore point up, it's going to be generating flashback logs, which can certainly make your database to hang at some point if the flash recovery area is full. So we will have to drop that. Job 103 is completed. So let's do an LSJ. It says this is completed, it's stopped. So that is good, no further actions. All right, so let's break out of this. And we certainly are going to have some post upgrade tasks that we need to do. Let's go ahead and do some checks. We are going to see confirm the versions, what it is currently right now. Let's set our environmental variables to TST1 and a SQL plus as sysdba. So right now, if you notice, it is now running from our 19C version 19.3. So let's take a look at that. Let's select our hostname version and status from our $v instance view. And let's see what it looks like. There we go. So we have TST1 now currently running on 19. And let's perform the post checks as well. Let's check for invalid objects. Let's do it this way. I would do this so that it run all of this three at the same time, just to set to format, actually. Let's do that. And definitely I would run the select for invalid to make sure that we don't have any residual invalid objects. And expected to see no rows selected. Let's look at our components. Let's look at our components. Let's run all of this at the same time. I'm just going to copy all of them. Let's take a look at that, and then we run the components then. So let's go ahead and look at the registry just to make sure. All right, that looks fantastic. Now, all the registry components are valid, and the versions have moved from 12 to 19. So that's exactly what we want to see. While we are here, let's first of all, let's also look at what we have as a restore point. Let's verify what we have as a restore point, because remember that guarantee restore point was created pre-upgrade. So we have a guarantee restore point right here. I'll wait for the job all to finish before I drop any of those guarantee restore points. Minimize this, and then let's see what's happening with the second one. So no further actions. So it looks therefore that all our two databases have upgraded successfully. Now, at the end of the upgrade, it's going to give you a recommendation, just like we mentioned it before, to drop the guarantee restore points. And we can check the upgrade summary from this. So let's take a look at this status HTML or status log. We can take a look at that. Let's cut the contents of that log. And also at the same time, we are going to download the HTML status. Now, before I do that, I will just rename this one so that I'm going to put it in here. I'll just say pre-upgrade. All right, and then I will download that status over Let's go to the SFTP tab. Let's go over here. I'll paste this, enter. And this is the status HTML. I'll download that to the same location. Okay, so that was quick. And let's take a look at that then. This is the status. All right, so post upgrade is going to tell us for job 102, which is TST2, version before upgrade 12.2, version after upgrade 19.3. And these are the different steps, right? Success, success, success. There is a failure here because remember for the pre-upgrade fix-ups, we had to adjust the flash recovery area. So that gives us a failure, but that doesn't mean it didn't complete, right? So what's important is to see the upgrade level, and that took 33 minutes and 41 seconds. Let's take a look at the second one. Now, because we didn't have any failures in the second one, in the prefix ups, we're not going to see any failure here. So for the prefix ups right here, you're going to see success, right? So, so guys, here is exactly what happens when you use this utility in order to upgrade your databases. Now, because we are successful with our upgrade, I can feel comfortable right now, you know, after all the checks are done, I can feel comfortable dropping this restore point. So I would go with drop restore point and that semicolon, and then I enter. And our restore point has been dropped. Just to double check that we don't have any more restore points, I'll run this command again, and it should give me no row selected. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same checks for test2 database. All right, no, I don't need this one. This is what I need. Let's check, of course, our database version from the $V instance view. I'll first of all set up my environment. Control C to get out of this. Dot or env. Capital letters is not going to do it for us. TST2. And then I will do a SQL plus connect as sysdba. And again, 19.3. So let's do that. So our version is currently that. Let's do the same thing for invalid objects. Let's check our invalid objects. Let's check our invalid objects. No row selected, just as we want. And let's verify our registry components. And just like TST1, everything is valid and all of them have been moved up to version 19. One last check would be the guarantee restore point. Let's do that. And we see that. So at this point, we can feel comfortable dropping the restore point. That. All right. So now, if this was in a production environment or however your system development lifecycle is where you work, in my experience, I don't typically change the compatible parameter just after the upgrade. I would let the developers test the applications and make sure that everything is good. I would let the database run for maybe a week or two, and certainly not report any issues in our low environments where I would do testing for the upgrade before I change the compatible parameter. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our video. I do hope that at this point, you are as excited as I am for the AutoUpgrade tool. This would enable you, like I said, upgrade more than one database at a time. So if it was one database, it would take the same time and effort. So if you have a tool like this that would take the same time and effort but can help you upgrade multiple databases at the same time, Then from a time perspective, from being an effective and efficient database, DBA, this is something that I would recommend that you practice with. So thank you. And if you do certainly like the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications so that you stay tuned of future content. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.